Hi, y'all. It's Rick here with Uncommon Communion, recording on a Friday early afternoon. Astute watchers, listeners, subscribers will know that I did not record one or write one, that is, a post, uh, today for this morning. I do want to say this about this post. This is number 399. So thanks for being here. And I am looking forward to writing for tomorrow, my 400th post. Before I share with you a little bit about why I did not post yesterday or write yesterday, record yesterday for today, let's begin as we always begin by recognizing, realizing, celebrating, and affirming, and most importantly, living from the reality that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So, last night, I was still recovering from a migraine that hit me out of the blue yesterday, right around 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, fortunately, when I get migraines, and they are fairly infrequent, knock on wood, fingers crossed, they are not as bad as I know some people get them. My youngest daughter, when she was even a kid, like 7 or 8 years old, she would get auras, which, for those of you that are fortunate to not suffer from migraines, an aura is some kind of a sensual distortion that precedes the arrival of the headache and the body ache and all that other stuff. So for me, fortunately, it is almost exclusively in my eyes, right? I get like blurred vision, and then it kaleidoscopes. It very much is like if you look in the light too long and you kind of see that aftermath. And fortunately for me, it only lasts about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, no more than an hour. And that's usually the worst symptom. Although it feels after that like I've been hit by a truck. And that's what I was feeling last night. I was just tired, not really feeling like I could record or write or share. So I read a novel, said a few prayers, and went to bed relatively early for me. So that was a good thing. It was self-care. I was gentle with myself. And that's what I want to talk about today is gentleness, right? Another way of understanding that is compassion, empathy, right? Now, compassion and empathy may or may not mean the exact same thing. I personally think they're almost certainly related. I would say, though, that compassion can be directed towards oneself, right? When I am feeling compassion for myself, a gentleness, like I'm saying, it makes all the difference because I can be pretty harsh on myself, right? I can be judgmental. I can wag the finger. There's definitely a critical voice in me that uses things like should and shouldn't and blah, 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 right? Negative self-talk. I think empathy is related to that, but it is how I view others, right? When I see or hear about someone suffering, do I relate to them? Do I resonate with them? Do I act in care and kindness and love? Or do I direct that same harsh voice that I can direct it myself at them, whoever the them might be? I bring this up today, y'all, because I'm reading something new, and therefore I'll be sharing with us. And I'll put a link to it here in the chat. It is about Julian, it is writings of Julian of Norwich. If you're not familiar with this saintly woman who lived hundreds of years ago in really the Middle Ages, the early Middle Ages of the church, she had visions in which Christ spoke with her, and her writings are remarkable because she is saying, "This is what Christ said to me." And I want to share with you what I read today in her words. Before that, though, I want to talk about something that it really bothers me. And if you are aware of this, perhaps it troubles you as well. Now, I'm not referring to just all the crazy, crazy stuff that is going on in the president, in MAGA, and all of that. I mean, the Jeffrey Epstein, Trump, Maxwell files are absolutely disgusting. And I mean, there's just almost no there's almost no words that I can continue to use for this. I think, though, one of the things that it continues to be striking about this is in the MAGA defense, right? And I put defense in quotation marks because what we are looking at is indefensible behavior in the actions that the rich white pedophiles did. And perhaps Donald Trump is one of those. Still getting more evidence, but the picture is becoming clearer, right? And also, on top of that, the cover-up that continues to go on, right? Nowhere in all of those voices is there talk about the survivors, is there talk about any sort of empathy or compassion for those who were perpetrated against as teenagers, as girls, right? And some of the defense, quote unquote, is absolutely disgusting. If you saw what is getting the rounds of Megyn Kelly, one of the leading voices of the MAGA defenders, the MAGA perpetrators, protectors of pedophiles, I can't even say what she said, but if you have the stomach for it, look it up. She was basically whitewashing and defending and saying that, well, it's not that bad. Bullshit. Sorry about my language. It's terrible. It is terrible. And this lack of empathy in these MAGAites, in many of whom consider themselves Christians, again in quotation marks, is being fueled by mindsets and books that are saying in the titles that empathy is bad, that empathy is sinful. You don't believe me that there's titles? Go to Amazon. I'm not going to link to these, y'all, because I don't want to give them any more publicity. I'll tell you, though, they're popular on Amazon. They get high ratings, and it looks like they get some sales. There's people reading this. First one is Toxic Empathy, How Progressives Exploit Christian Compassion. Just a couple little things there. Right in the title, what are they doing? They're linking compassion, right? And Christian there, compassion and progressives. And if there's anything we know about the MAGA world, it is that progressives and libs are meant to be owned. Just that name is a slur. So just putting it in the title, linking compassion and progressives right there in the title is sending a very clear message. The one that is even more on the nose and I think very direct about what it is saying is the sin of empathy. Compassion and its counterfeits, the sin of empathy. And this is there's not much of a write-up on this. It does get a 4.2 rating, and it looks like people are reading this. It says, the so-called virtue of empathy is the greatest rhetorical tool of manipulation in the 21st century, because love is a real virtue. Empathy's power is imposing a selfless care for victims. And then there's a little bit more here. And then it closes, when you reject the sin of empathy, you reject the manipulation of the media, the manipulation of family and friends, and most importantly, the manipulation of your own heart. Yeah, this is what people are writing about. Just 2 books. And there is much, much more out there. And I got to say this, y'all. Those who try to portray that following the way of Christ does not involve empathy, they're wrong. Apparently, they haven't read the Gospels. Apparently, they haven't read the Sermon on the Mount. Certainly, they have not had the experience of Christ that Julian of Norwich, hundreds of years ago, centuries ago, described. And I want to read to you what I read today, and this will act as our closing prayer and a closing challenge, I think, for each of us. Because if we are to follow the way of Christ, if we are planetary pilgrims on the way of Christ, and quite honestly, on the way of Islam, on the way of Buddha, on the way of the Mosaic Law, of Judaism, we are to be compassionate, right? Do unto others as you would have done unto you is about compassion, unless you are a sociopath and you are a masochist, a sadomasochist, that you want horrible things done to you. And in that case, you got bigger problems, y'all. So here's what Julian says. And again, I'm going to put a link to her. I really recommend that you check her out. Recommend you check this book out too, this 30 Days. It's a great little book. It's like $10, pretty cheap. And I am really enjoying using it on a daily basis for prayer and for reflection. And here's what Julian says. She says, I beheld Christ's mercy upon us on account of our sin. And just as previously I was filled with sorrow and pity because of Christ's suffering, so now I was moved with compassion on behalf of my neighbors, the servants of God, who are all greatly loved and saved. For our community is shaken by grief, anguish, and woe as you would shake a rag in the wind. And I began to understand how our Lord could rejoice with sympathy and compassion over the afflictions of his people. He visits something upon each one he loves in order to bring us to happiness. Although this thing carries no blame in his eyes, we are scorned and rejected by the world because of it. Jesus wishes us to realize that it will be converted to our glory and that we will benefit by the strength of his suffering. Nor do we endure distress alone, but are united to him. We behold him in the ground of our being. And we realize that his suffering, Christ's suffering and affliction, so far surpasses anything we might endure that we cannot fully comprehend it. When we come to see this, we will stop weeping and lamenting our own sufferings. We will begin to understand that our sufferings are well-deserved, but God's love always excuses us. Out of his great courtesy, he never censures us, but instead looks upon us with compassion and sympathy, seeing us as righteous children without guilt. Yeah, those are the words from one of the most important mystics of the church, saying spot on what Christ wants for us, which is gentleness and compassion for ourselves because Christ gives it to us, and empathy and compassion for others in their struggle, in their sin, in their challenges. Pretty simple. Hard to do, y'all, but pretty simple. So glad I could be with you today to celebrate number 399, and really do plan, God willing, to be able to be in a place tonight to write, because I got some things to share. And I'm looking ahead to Advent. I don't know if y'all have looked at the calendar, but it's a fortnight, 2 weeks from this Sunday that we start Advent. And I got some big plans in mind because you might remember it was Advent last year when I began this project. So coming up on Advent again is quite special because I get to do the liturgical year once again. All right, y'all. Thank you. Blessings and good. Be gentle. Be bold. Be well.